Reddit is one of the largest sites on the internet, used by millions of people every single day. But, as with any publicly accessible website, it's also host to a number of questionable individuals. White Bowser is one such individual. A prolific member of some very unique subreddits. An anime gooner. A man who's obsessed with talking about lolcows to hide his own shady past. Because what White Bowser doesn't want you to know is that he's a minor, and he's been spending the past few years trying desperately to talk his way out of it. Born Earl David Doobie, White Bowser is a 31-year-old autistic man from Shelby, Michigan. While not much is known about Earl's early life, it appears he had a promising future ahead of him. According to one of his high school teachers, they envisioned him making a career out of digital animation, and he did follow that path, eventually graduating with a bachelor's degree in fine arts and game art. However, he was never able to do much with this degree, as he spent the majority of his life after college working odd jobs and living at his mother's house. But the story of White Bowser truly begins like all great internet tragedies, on Discord. Ironically, Earl's infamy sparked on Discord servers owned by Smokey MCC and Kiwi Tapes, two YouTube content creators who dissect the events and a general history of lolcows. For almost a year, Earl casually engaged in discussion in Smokey's Discord server without drawing any negative attention to himself. That was until one fateful night when a fellow member of Smokey's server, who was a US Army veteran who had recently returned home, began venting about his poor mental state after serving, stating he was in a dark place and dealing with depression. Earl decided to respond to this distressed soldier, not by consoling him, but instead by suggesting that he should take his own life if it was really that bad. Whether or not this was meant as a joke or a genuine suggestion is hard to figure out, but Earl did claim in private messages that it was simply a joke and apologized. Although the veteran was rightfully upset about it and responded with anger, explaining that he'd lost as many as 10 friends to what Earl was joking about, including one that did it right in front of him. But Earl's empathy quickly wore thin, and he began complaining about how tired he was, telling the veteran to stop in all caps over and over again. Clearly, his apologetic attitude wasn't a fully genuine expression of regret. More so, it was just Earl trying to make the situation go away as fast as possible, which is something of a pattern with him, as we'll see. This incident painted a target on Earl's back moving forward. Other members of the server began grilling him in voice calls in an attempt to learn more about him and what made him say such a thing. One notable detail that came up was his affinity for two Japanese animations titled Freezing and Towawa on a Monday, which were what is typically referred to as eki anime, essentially meaning they're softcore adult animation. The thing is, the two animes in specific that Earl watched happened to feature ample-breasted high school students and genetically engineered young women, which is to say that they were pretty frowned upon by the moderation on the server, who banned him immediately upon finding out about his strange interest. Despite being digitally absent from the server moving forward, White Bowser still remained in the minds of the other members, and his large digital footprint would only serve to harm his reputation further. It wasn't long before users discovered Earl's Reddit account, which contained a plethora of bizarre activity. Some of the posts are just hilarious, like the time he showed off his gyat on r/big-butt-problems, but others are more disturbing, such as multiple posts where he claims to be the father of a young girl in the 4th grade. Not only does Earl not have a daughter, he's also admitted that he's currently still a virgin.
Hold up, are you a virgin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Now, obviously, it's not totally out of the ordinary for a man in his mid-20s to early 30s to want to have a daughter if they don't have one, but it is particularly strange that Earl was fantasizing about having one on Reddit. And there are two prominent posts from that same Reddit account that truly bring Earl's character into question. For starters, Earl spent a bizarre amount of time on the subreddit r/big-boob-problems, which is a place for generously endowed women to vent, discuss, and ask for advice in regards to the difficulties that come from being, well endowed. One post in particular that Earl made to the subreddit showed him being lambasted by a fellow member, implying that a post he made was sexist. Earl later explained his reasoning for frequenting the subreddit, claiming that he was simply investigating users.
What I wanted to do was I wanted to do a little bit of internet research. I wanted to cross-reference and check if people from our big boob problems were cross-posting on another subreddit to see if they were karma farming.
What is it?
Yeah, that's like really creepy that you're trying to find the other accounts of these women who are like, who gives a shit if they're karma farming?
I admit I wanted to be a little internet detective, but sure, you can call me weird for that.
It really made no sense that Earl was concerned about the integrity of women on the Big Boob Problems subreddit. Even if there were, I guess, bad actors using the forum to get attention, this realistically is not a problem that should affect him in any way. The reality is, Earl almost certainly used these forums for unintended purposes, and his investigation was more akin to research. But the most infamous discovery from his Reddit account was one that would haunt him forever. The day my life turned into an anime, a nearly 2,000-word Reddit post in which Earl admits to accidentally groping a 17-year-old girl. Disclaimer, this is the story of a man who flew too close to the sun. Some background on me. I'm highly religious and was raised to believe in Jesus Christ, God, forgiveness, and all the love. Naturally, always going to church on the weekends and praying for all those weaker and poorer than me made me feel like I was secure in my life. And also, I was a man who absolutely adored the idea of making movies. So much so that when the opportunity came that I got a job at a movie theater, I thought I had literally hit the lottery. Earl described this job as the American dream and claims to have been a model employee at his local movie theater. He picked up extra shifts whenever he could and even refused to leave when he was supposed to, opting instead to spend time chatting with coworkers or catching a movie off the clock. His job at the movie theater was so easygoing that he didn't even feel compelled to use swear words anymore. He described the job as heaven on earth, as he had become the self-described spirit of the workplace. However, one fateful night, White Bowser's paradise shattered in an instant. One night, I was working behind the popcorn counter and was called over by my boss for a nightly team meeting. At the end of the speech, one of my best friends at the movie theater, who I absolutely had a man crush on, even though I was straight, put his hand in the middle of the crowd. Now, he always did this, and everyone was expected to do the same, like a sort of Power Rangers-esque fashion. And everyone would shout, "Go movie theater!" However, one girl in the group did not want to do it, and she began walking away before everyone had a chance to put their hands in the middle. Not knowing what was going on in her head or why she was walking away, I instinctively swung my arm around and grabbed her shoulder from the back. What happened next, to this day, I still have no memory of, because it happened too darn fast. She turned around faster than lightning and said, "You better hustle." And yes, I'm not even sure that's what she said because I don't remember. Also, when she turned around at breakneck speed, my hand moved from grabbing the back of her shoulder to the front of her chest. And this all happened within the span of 5 seconds. When she stormed off, I was just standing in shock with all my coworkers behind me, and they were all looking at me, and all I could say was, I should not have done that. That's right, Earl somehow managed to grope this girl in an attempt to do a Power Rangers super chant. This sounds like a bit out of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I was trying to feel your breast.
The rest of the shift was described by Earl as awkward, and his boss eventually sent him home for the day. In the meantime, his boss began an internal investigation with his fellow female coworkers to determine if Earl had ever made them feel uncomfortable. Despite his belief that the girls who worked with him at the theater liked him, apparently it was far from the case, as all of them reported feeling mistreated and uncomfortable when he was around. Earl felt betrayed and implied he blamed the women for not telling him that he made them uncomfortable. As a result, he took an uncharacteristic break from work, clocked out, left the theater, and sobbed in his car as he drove home. Earl didn't go back to the theater for the following 3 weeks, and when he did, he noticed the girl from the Power Rangers incident wasn't present anymore. A week after his return, his former manager pulled him aside to tell him that she had apparently been so traumatized from the situation that she had requested for Earl to no longer be allowed to hang out at the theater. Distraught, he once again ran out of the theater crying. In a last-ditch effort to right his wrongs, he sent a text message to the manager of the theater, saying, "I was told I can no longer linger at the movie theater even if it's to say hi to old friends. I was also told that because of that accident that happened with that girl, that I now gave her PTSD. If this is the case, you will no longer see me come to the movie theater as a customer. This will be my final message to all my friends I made. If forgiveness and reconciliation cannot be facilitated between this situation, then I would rather go to a different theater." In his closing statement on the Reddit post, he expressed his desire to apologize to the girl and even offered to get beaten up by her boyfriend as a token of reconciliation. But with this newly discovered accidental incident and Earl's previous admittance to enjoying underage anime, many in the Discord came to the conclusion that he was a creep. Consequently, detractors began flooding his private Discord server and hurling insults at him, accusing him of being a danger to children. His first attempt at trying to squash the rumors surrounding his proclivities came a few days later, with a video titled, "The Argument Between Anime and Pedophilia."
I admitted that I found scenes from the Japanese cartoons called Tawawa on Monday and Freezing to be sexually attractive. For context, the female cartoon characters in this anime are portrayed and drawn to be hypersexualized on purpose by the manga artists. But on that basis alone, that labels me as a because those females in the cartoon are below the age of 18.
In the same video, Earl explains that these new allegations left him in a state of depression, and he had decided to seek counsel. Apparently, both his psychiatrist and therapist told him that he wasn't some kind of creep. He then differentiated between what he called ego-sanic and ego-alien. He identifies his ego-sanic with Chris Chan, showing no remorse, shame, or guilt for his actions. Ego-alien, on the other hand, he identifies with his true self, who gets very distraught at the prospect of being framed as some kind of creep, leading him to get panic attacks. He goes on to state that he will sue anyone who continues to call him a creep, and makes a major announcement, which is that he would only be playing Genshin Impact in solo mode past that point in time. I don't know why he felt the need to announce that last part, but it is pretty funny that he paired those two announcements together. Now, the story could have ended here, as White Bowser's notoriety was relegated to a handful of Smokey's Discord members. I mean, weird people on Discord are hardly rare. If you're trying to become a notorious one, frankly, you have some really tough competition ahead of you. However, one user did see potential, and that user was an individual named MF Goon, who told White Bowser that Smokey MCC, infamous horror cow Cyrax, and Cyrax's most well-known troll, Music Biz Marty, were all colluding to create a content farm. MF Goon provided no proof of any of it, and it was a completely fabricated claim. But that didn't stop Earl from using this against Smokey. In a livestream, Earl alleged that Smokey was a PDF file. His logic being that Smokey's association with Cyrax was enough to earn him that title.
All I said was I find anime attractive. That's all I freaking says. I find anime attractive. And yet you guys are actually in cahoots with a literal or someone who likes to associate themselves with a file for money.
A few days after his video, YouTuber Kiwi Tapes decided to restream one of Bowser's Genshin Impact live streams.
And when I ran across him streaming Genshin Impact one day, I decided to restream him. And when he found out about this, his chat started asking him to hop on panel with me. And with a lot of help, he agreed, but only because he expected me to pay him at the end.
Under the false pretense of receiving a percentage of Kiwi's donations, Bowser joined a call with him in which he was questioned over a handful of different allegations he had received. Most notably, however, was the revelation of Bowser calling in a bomb threat, something that Kiwi Tapes knew nothing about at the time.
We got another 5 from Nomags. Ask Bowser about the bomb threat. Bomb threat you triggered? They're saying you're a domestic terrorist.
Why do we have to go over that?
Despite how many detractors he'd already gotten himself, no one would have guessed that White Bowser would get put in a psych ward over the following comment. Dear Strongbad, ever noticed how creepy Homestar Runner has been acting? I think the King of Town should address this. P.S. Don't go to the movies with him anymore. Sincerely, Viklas, Sweden. This comment is a reference to an online animation series called Homestar Runner. The character Strongbad has a dedicated segment to reading email submissions from viewers. As to why this commenter chose to make this specific reference, it's likely due to the similar speech patterns of White Bowser and Homestar Runner. For all intents and purposes, this is nothing more than a light jab at Earl, making fun of his Fortnite accent and creepy behavior at the movie theater.
Yeah, I figured I'd just cut up some ice bowl lettuce.
But Earl really read between the lines here and interpreted this as a bomb threat. A little bit of a side note, but anyone in the comments section telling me to do the Charleston, making insane accusations about my haircut, or anyone hopping on this Tom the Type of Guy trend will be interpreted as threats against my life, and I will get the police involved. You've been warned. Moving on, without a second thought, Earl sprung into action and rushed to form his former employees before it was too late. And we know all of this happened thanks to a police report. When the police arrived at the scene, they interviewed the manager, Mike, who clarified there was no threat to the theater. He did not believe the YouTube comment Earl had received was any credible threat worthy of attention. If anything, he apparently believed that the entire fiasco was simply Earl trying to get attention from the previous Power Rangers incident with that girl. The cops then interviewed Earl, at which point they came to the conclusion that he was mentally unwell. Earl also notably lies about his reasoning for coming to the theater, falsely claiming the police department told him to do it. Caught with his foot in his mouth, he strangely segued into the details of the groping incident unprovoked, specifically claiming that he touched her chest for 10 seconds. All of this resulted in Earl being taken to the hospital and subsequently trespassed from ever returning to the theater. However, his time being institutionalized would do very little in dissuading him from pushing the issue, as we'll soon come to find out. This was only one of the many topics discussed in Kiwi Tapes' first initial discussion with Bowser. And the tone of the overall conversation, which was definitely not friendly on Kiwi Tapes' part, makes it all the more confusing that Earl suggested the idea of teaming up with him to start a podcast together.
He wanted a platform where he could share his excuses with a wide audience. And after I re-streamed him, I think he believed I was on his side, because a day later, I got an offer to start a weekly podcast called 110 Autism.
The name 110 Autism is a reference to Earl's self-reported 110 IQ, which is a name he supposedly came up with himself. While he was told he would serve as a co-host and receive a percentage of the donations from the streams, it was all a ruse. In reality, the 110 Autism podcast served as an excuse to continue questioning Earl and farming content. Viewers would be allowed to call in and also present him with questions that almost always ended with Earl making himself sound even worse, somehow. Not even 10 minutes into the first episode, we already get a glimpse into how disconnected from reality he truly is. One caller intended to question him about his presence and subsequent ban on the r/big boob problem subreddit, and he makes a reference to a comment Earl made being deleted. However, Earl misheard him and believed he said that the entire subreddit had been deleted, which caused this reaction.
On your Reddit account, there was a particularly odd subreddit that we saw that you were in at some point, and I'm curious on the nature of this post.
What was
it? It was long deleted, but it was a particular subreddit. I can't remember the name to save the life of me, but it was a subreddit for women that share.
Wait,
their
that was
problems with
deleted?
having,
That was deleted?
It was, yes, whatever it was deleted. It's a Reddit. It's I don't know what the name is. It's a Reddit for women who. Hold on. Whoa, hey, we're getting hyped up real early in the stream here, boys.
Holy crap.
This caller was attempting to question what his intentions were when engaging on the subreddit, heavily implying that he was harassing women in the community, but all Bowser could focus on was the backlog of huge mommy knockers being lost to time. To make matters worse, Earl carelessly admits that he has fapped too many posts on the subreddit. But of course, this wasn't even the tip of the iceberg for this podcast, and Earl only continued to make a fool out of himself. He bizarrely decides that it's appropriate to tell a story of a zoo trip visit with his younger cousin.
When I went to the zoo with my little cousins and everyone and my whole family, I went to the zoo with them, and one of my littler cousins, not me, he pointed at a zebra's, cock. He pointed at it, and he was really small. He pointed at it, saying, "Hey, why does that cock look like a black dong?" So I said to my little cousin, like, "Oh wow, I guess all mammal look the same." And then my older cousin looked at me and just gave me the stupidest freaking look ever.
Neither of these stories do Earl any favors in beating the allegations, and neither do his comments regarding his enjoyment of Tawawa on a Monday. For further context, Tawawa is a show about a 15-year-old schoolgirl who has a sexual relationship with an older man named Oni-san. While the older man's age is never directly stated, it's reasonable to assume he is, at the youngest, in his mid to early 20s, effectively making this anime about a high school girl being groomed. Even spending a few minutes on the fandom wiki goes to show how strange this show is, with girls even younger than the main character having their bust measurements listed, and a plethora of other young characters being groomed. But weirdly enough, Earl just couldn't shut his mouth about this. Instead, he actively admitted to pleasuring himself to the show, and only continued to defend himself on the podcast. As moments later, he asks for a direct source that the characters are actually high school teenagers, and also says that if they are minors, it's disgusting. At one point, he states that his previous actions don't reflect the person he is today, specifically stating that it's in the past. But when asked if watching Tawawa is also in his past, he says this.
So the Tawawa was in the past?
You know what? Yeah, you know what? For the sake of this podcast, we're gonna say that's in the past too. I'm gonna start.
What's in the past?
I don't believe you.
Wait, oh, you don't believe me? Ah,
No, you said just for the sake of this podcast.
Oh,
yeah, but nobody's gonna believe that.
You know what? Oh, yeah, you're right.
On top of not being too convincing to the other members of the panel, it gets even stranger when he promises to be dry while watching the show moving forward. Aside from the horrible image I'm sure that paints in your head, he clearly doesn't really have any reservations with continuing to watch a show about a teenager being groomed, as long as he doesn't personally goon to it anymore. This is also something he would later contradict himself on when he stated the main reason he watched the show was because the characters have large breasts.
Bowser, you gotta admit something right now, bro. You gotta be honest with me, alright? You gotta be honest with me.
Okay.
You're saying this because you don't want to have to admit that it's up. You are attracted to that, but you do not want to admit it right now. Am I true? Am I saying facts?
Well, I have to say I no longer support it, but yeah, it's true.
This entire interaction demonstrates how insincere nearly any apology he gives truly is. Despite initially arguing that the characters being minors didn't matter, he changes his disposition to appease the other members of the panel, likely realizing it was the only way to get them off his back. He even goes as far as to say that the creators of the show manipulated him, simply because he doesn't recall the ages being specified.
If I may interject, it's rather obvious that they're going to be probably under 18 in the first place, because first first of all, they're like first or second year in high school.
But it never says that though.
But you know for a fact that they're not seniors in high school.
Yeah, well,
and they look young. So I don't. It's at least to me.
And you've admitted in past videos, Bowser, that you know that these manga artists draw them in a way that shows them.
Yeah, and you know what? I gotta be real with you. Is stuff that they do that.
The fact that these characters are in high school should make it easy to determine whether they're teenagers or not. This part of the discussion concludes in Bowser reaffirming that he's not a creep in any way, shape, or form, which immediately gives way to the topic of the movie theater groping incident. Earl starts out saying that the girl wasn't under the age of consent, claiming that her twin sister had told him she was already 18 months before everything transpired. As the conversation continued, Earl gets caught in a lie, claiming that he was 27 when he had groped this girl, despite him previously saying he was 24 on Discord. At first, he plays coy, pretending as though he didn't recall saying this, before quickly admitting that he had intentionally lied, and then conceding to having a lying problem.
And then I feel maybe if I tell them the exact right lie, they'll tell me the truth and say this so I can save their life next. And that's
so you play on suicidal people.
But that also doesn't explain why you lie to like.
What does it have to do with being true and honest?
Yeah.
And you're talking about one specific circumstance under which you might lie, not like why you lie to us.
It doesn't though. It doesn't explain it, but if I tell them of the lie and they tell the truth, I will then know the truth and therefore can stop the truth from happening.
That's right, the guy who told a depressed army veteran to take himself out actually really cares about people taking their own lives, and believes that lying to people in that situation makes them tell the truth about their ideation, thus allowing him to save them. If you think that doesn't make any sense, you're right on the money. Earl concedes that it doesn't make any sense, yet pretends that since he's witnessed so many people taking their own lives, that it's how he learned to behave, almost as a trauma response. The conversation takes a quick shift when Kiwi asks Bowser if there are any minors in his own personal Discord server, and he answers yes, referencing a specific user named T. This question was very calculated, as both Kiwi and Smokey already knew the answer, because an unnamed individual in Smokey's Discord had infiltrated the White Bowser server, privately messaging Earl while posing as a 17-year-old girl. Bowser had no idea about this until Smokey dropped a bombshell.
Why would you keep her there?
And why'd you tell her to never tell anybody that she's 17?
Because I was worried, because I saw...
Bowser claims that he wanted to keep her age a secret because she had been doxxed and harassed by other members, and believed that her being a minor would only paint a bigger target on her back. Of course, that makes no sense at all, and if anything, should have been an indication to not have minors hanging around, but this is the White Bowser we're talking about after all. Earl claims that he told her directly that she was too young to be talking to him, yet for some reason, this didn't prevent him from engaging with her and allowing her to continue being a member of his server. This issue was pressed further when a user by the name of Cow Wrangler joined the panel. Cow Wrangler has been described by Smokey as Bowser's mortal enemy, as she's extremely provocative, confrontational, and aggressive with Earl when speaking with him, and she definitely does justice to that title.
Bowser, have you ever acknowledged the fact that you make people deeply uncomfortable, and that at your workplace, you're probably that guy that a lot of the women wouldn't admit it, but they didn't like because you're creepy? Have you thought about the fact that you've been run out of several subreddits because of your bizarre behavior towards any woman that comes towards your way?
Cow Wrangler lambasts Earl for everything we've discussed so far. The Big Boob Problem subreddit, Tawawa on a Monday, the groping incident, and of course the recently revealed 17-year-old girl he was privately messaging.
Was you told everyone that she was 17, and you told everyone else that you were telling her people that so that if she was groomed or preyed on, she could tell you. You were dangling her over the wall.
No,
predators in your server.
Don't stop right there. Stop right there.
Stop. Fine, Bowser, you can cry about it, but I have the screenshots, and I can send them to everyone here to show them.
Shut up for a second. Hey, shut up.
Earl explains that the reason he did this was just in case someone tried to groom her in the server, so that she could let him know and he could ban them. But this doesn't really make sense for multiple reasons. For starters, if no one knows her age, how could anyone know they were attempting to court a minor? How is any attempt at flirting or inappropriate conversation worthy of a ban if they can't possibly know their age? And this is also just extremely negligent, using what he believes to be an actual minor as bait to lure in child predators. If Earl truly believed that there were no predators in the server, or even a risk of it, the logical course of action would be to explicitly deny all minors access to the server. But the alternative explanation is quite obvious, leading Cow Wrangler to accuse Earl of being a creep himself, which causes him to have a mental breakdown.
Bowser, you're a predator.
I am not! Stop it right now! Kick him now! I am not!
I can't. That's the shade.
Hey,
whoa, easy, fellas.
For context, Cow Wrangler is referencing a Reddit post that Earl made in which he dreamt that he drank a gallon of milk and turned into a young woman with massive boobs. He also makes it clear that he did not have a wet dream, which is good to know. It was clear that Bowser was being very overwhelmed at this point, but as other panel members stepped in to try and de-escalate the situation, it wasn't long before another meltdown took place.
She looks like a 15-year-old. Her friends look like children. So the fact that you sexualize her and you make comments about dreaming about turning into her is so interesting.
Are you f***ing done? Please.
I mean, she's just
Bowser. No. I think I don't mean to exacerbate the wounds here.
Attack away. Stop.
What is he gonna be, a villain, or is he's got to be a villain?
Definitely a villain.
Yeah, this is too good.
I see Mr. Bowser so excited he's crying tears of joy.
Bowser, what's up?
Earl also reveals that in a fit of rage shortly after losing his job at the movie theater, he blew up on his best friend Ricky and called him the N-word. And for context, Ricky is black.
I got so mad at him being so apathetic against me losing my job, and when he seemed apathetic to me losing my job, I lost my shit, and I just said, "You're an arrogant N-word."
To put it in simple terms, this stream was a complete disaster, and the only reason Bowser stayed was because he believed he was going to get a percentage of the donations, something he never got. After it was over, Smokey dropped a video on Earl, solidifying his status as a lolcow and attracting a much larger public presence to the story. Unsurprisingly, Earl didn't handle the newfound infamy very well, and he uploaded a now-deleted video to his YouTube channel. In it, he described himself as a caged animal and attempts to separate himself from the lolcow title.
A caged animal acts afraid, acts scared, he panics. A lolcow will just act arrogant. He'll yell, he'll scream. You know, Cyrax, he yells and he screams and he engages with people who accuse him of things. Okay, that's what Cyrax does. And that's what Chris Chan does. They engage with people who want to hurt them. I don't want to engage with anyone who wants to hurt me, okay? I'm scared right now. I feel as if I am in danger.
While I wouldn't say that Kiwi or Smokey are attempting to hurt him, they definitely aren't in his corner, and yet Earl has and will continue to engage with them. A week after his video response, Earl appeared on the second episode of the 110 Autism podcast, but this time there was a twist. In the second episode, they ran a mock trial in which White Bowser was the defendant. Earl seemed to be under the belief that this was a real legal trial and that he was being sued by Smokey for $4.5 million in a defamation suit. This stream also included a cast of characters that were present in the previous episode, including some random guy pretending to be the infamous Chris Chan troll Liquid Chris, who served as Smokey's lawyer. Meanwhile, a random guy named Howard Newman served as Bowser's lawyer, and Kiwi Tapes was the judge.
What we're here to do today is we're basically here to tell Bowser, listen, like all this creepy shit you've been doing, it all ends tonight. And it ends with you giving me $4.5 million.
Of course, the formal setting didn't really distinguish the content much from the first episode. However, there are some notable gems worth talking about. For starters, when Bowser learns that the age of consent in Michigan is 16, he has a very weird reaction.
Hold on,
look it up.
Is that actually true?
It is.
There is the link. There is the link.
So, Bowser, how do you feel about this revelation?
That the age of consent in Michigan is 16, that really surprises me.
Later on, we also get an appearance from Tony the Black Dragon. Now, Tony is a bit of a lolcow himself, playing a role in panels featuring Cyrax. He's well known for being in a wheelchair, taking pictures of underage girls at a mall, and is supposedly possessed by a black dragon lord who can curse people and summon spirits. He's one of the few people here who manages to make Bowser look pretty normal. According to Smokey, the reason they brought Tony in was to get a certified creep to assess whether or not Earl was also one.
Do you think that the White Bowser's after all that we've talked about, Tony, after all we've discussed?
I don't see
the cartoons that he watches, and if he gets his jolly up on those cartoons, then yes.
But Tony wasn't the only witness to testify in court, as Earl's nemesis, Cow Wrangler, also made an appearance. Earl immediately seemed uncomfortable, saying he wasn't interested in hearing anything they had to say. But unfortunately for him, he didn't have a choice.
Well, you don't like being called out. You like being the big tough male. And quite frankly, Bowser, I know your main fantasy is to have the cute little trad Kath wife and a bunch of kids that she pops out every day. You're never going to get that. You're unlikable. You're unwanted. You're not sexy. Wow. You get no money. And the only job you're able to keep is a Kroger job because you've lied about your credentials. And I'm really sad about that personally.
Eventually, Earl insults Tony's intelligence, compelling him to turn off the lights in his room, speak in an ancient language, and bestow a curse upon his soul.
I'm so scared.
Usha is salasal. Kama is salas. Erlisal is amas.
Oh my gosh.
Unalisal. Kama is alamal.
Well, Bowser, it was nice knowing you.
By the end of the podcast, the only people left were Kiwi Tapes and Earl. And in the final moments, Kiwi pulled the mask off, revealing that Bowser wouldn't be paid a cent for his appearances.
Bowser, I just want you to know, I do not like you. You are everything that these people call you. And the fact that that you came to me and wanted to start a podcast with me, knowing the kind of shit that I cover, is fucking hilarious. And if you think that you're ever gonna talk to me again, or you're gonna get anything out of me, well, you're gonna be waiting for quite a few Chihuahuas on a Monday. We'll put it like that. I'm never talking to you again. This podcast is never getting another episode. What about payment?
Yeah, and what about payment?
That's it. That was Autism 110.
In the wake of the 110 Autism podcast, a new show titled Too High for Stupid was born from the ashes. Featuring Kiwi and Smokey, it continues to this day. For Bowser, things only got worse as he finally got his own dedicated thread on Kiwi Farms. It seems as though Earl had reached a breaking point, as he was now more infamous than ever and was desperate to seek revenge on the man who was responsible, Smokey.
I've been traumatized by this entire situation with Smokey McCrack or Smokey MCC on YouTube. This morning I went to the police department and filed a witness statement against Smokey's YouTube channel and against the videos Smokey has made of me. I'm done.
Not only did Earl have intentions of reporting Smokey to the police, he also vowed to report his channel every time he was quote-unquote slandering him. Of course, this was something that couldn't be ignored by Smokey and Kiwi Tapes, as they began reacting to a video of Earl echoing the sentiment on their podcast.
Is Bowser? I think Bowser's finally getting his group of neo to take me down. Listen closely to what he says.
And the more it happens, the more rights I have to report his YouTube channel.
Right there, right? The more whites that he has on his YouTube channel. He's getting all of his Aryan brothers together, and he's gonna take down.
It wouldn't be long before White Bowser himself caught wind of it and joined in on the discussion. At this point, interactions between Earl and the boys began to blend together, with Earl calling them evil, degenerate drug addicts, and the two of them calling him a child predator. However, a notable revelation came when the fake Liquid Chris informed them that Earl was continuing to behave inappropriately.
Bowser has a secret Discord where he streams corn to my... What? That's that Christian troll. What is he talking about, Earl?
I don't know.
This claim in and of itself doesn't seem too far from the truth, because Earl had quite literally admitted to it on his live stream the night prior.
And you know what? I didn't stream to children, you idiot. I did not stream children. I stream cartoon hentai to children, you idiot.
Under the name of Daddy Butcher, Earl Doobie ran a not-safe-for-work server full of minors. In it, he made announcements of when he would be streaming adult anime, followed directly by, "Get all your homework done, kiddies." In another screenshot, Earl claims that they were all in voice chat watching John Cena assault a 13-year-old, whatever that means. These are in addition to a ton of other gross and disturbing statements that you probably just shouldn't say around people under the age of consent in general. This was, by far, the most clear-cut and egregious evidence against Bowser that had been released up until that point. Although Earl saw fit to dispute how illegal it was in a community post, which read, "I don't know how many times I have to say it. I did not break the law. If I did, the police officers who voluntarily showed up to my door would have said something." And honestly, they said the opposite. They said, "These trolls are idiots." So there you go. Showing hentai in my anime Discord server is not against the law. There is a big difference between hentai anime and real stuff. Notice Earl's choice of words here. He intentionally mischaracterizes his actions and is able to make a true statement without revealing the whole story. Yes, it is legal to stream not safe for work content on Discord, but that's not really what he did. He streamed it directly to children, something he admitted to himself. It's possible that any officers that showed up to his home were lied to as well. Now, Earl did eventually delete the server, but only after this was brought to light, which made a lot of people speculate that he was clearly trying to hide what was going on. He often uses his deletion of the server as a way to vindicate himself, but it obviously doesn't work, as it also later came out that there were images of young Indian children being sent to the server. Not a good look. On the same day as this community post, Smokey uploaded his second installment of Earl's Meet the Lolcows episode. This was likely Earl's breaking point, as 3 days later, he announced a sabbatical from live streaming. People thought maybe he would finally be taking a break from the internet, getting his life in order, and avoiding this entire internet debacle. But they were wrong, as not even a week later, he announced that he planned to begin daily uploads on YouTube.
I'm gonna do daily uploads to this YouTube channel. That's right. I'm gonna start doing daily uploads to this YouTube channel and start acting like a real lolcow. How would you like that much, huh?
It seemed like Earl was trying to take control of his destiny by pretending to be a lolcow instead of actually being one. Like the time he titled one of his live streams, 30-year-old man offers hand in marriage to legal lolly. Of course, it didn't last for long, and Earl continued belly aching about Smokey and his community. This is because everything Earl does is strategic. With every video, he makes a pathetic attempt at getting the metaphorical monkey off his back. And his next stunt would be one where he set out to fully atone for his sins and achieve absolution. Man, all this talk about white Bowser is making me so tired, and there's snow outside, so I'm cold. Man, I wish I had something to perk me up. Oh, is that Gamer Sups? Gamer Sups is the greatest energy drink in the game. It's got 0 calories, 0 sugar, and it tastes way more delicious than any other energy drink in the freaking game. Here we've got Grandma's Ashes, excellent flavor, one of my personal favorites. Here we have Anime Girl Thigh, a little iffy on the marketing, but it does taste good. And then we've got Chug Juice. You guys like to chug? And don't forget the fact that it's way more affordable than soda or other energy drinks. Oh my God, there's 100 servings in each one of these little tubs. That's 40 cents per serving. What are you doing? Use code TOM to get 10% off your order at gamersups.gg.
Bless me, O internet, for I have sinned. This is the white Bowser here, and I'm showing up for a confession on the internet. I've dressed up in full church garb, and we're gonna get straight into it.
Your eyes and ears do not deceive you. Earl appropriately and tastefully dressed up as a church pastor and prayed to the internet for forgiveness. As strange as this is, it pales in comparison to the pure cope and consistent logical fallacies that plague his 53-minute-long confessional. Not to mention that Earl carelessly uses the first name of the girl he groped frequently throughout the video. While Earl does admit that what he did was wrong and that he deeply regretted it, he can't help but excuse his behavior and even pat himself on the back. He recalls approaching the young girl's brother and apologizing for what he did to his sister, something that he said took balls to do. He also references his co-workers Nick and Gio, telling him that it wasn't his fault and that it was just an accident. However, when Earl begins describing the groping situation, he describes it as an anime moment.
Now, bear in mind, I was really quite in shock when the whole thing went down. I had never touched a boob before. My hand slipped and touched her chest, that's all I can say. It truly was an anime-esque moment.
This accidental grope is apparently a relatively common trope within anime that typically ends as a comedic, lighthearted blunder with little consequence. While Earl continuously refers to what he did as a sin and shameful, he also almost seems to revel in the experience. He describes the situation as the day his life turned into an anime. Earl wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants people to feel bad about him getting fired, while also gloating about his epic anime moment where he got to feel a boob for the first time. Sick, dude. Congratulations, you freaking won. A common tactic you might have noticed is that White Bowser attempts to excuse his actions not through explanations or apologies, but rather by separating himself from accountability entirely. This includes claiming to barely remember the situation, like he did in the Reddit post, or by claiming he didn't even realize he had groped her. Despite seeking reconciliation for his sins, Bowser seemingly can't help himself, as he gets sidetracked and mentions how the girl's twin sister had larger breasts than her.
The craziest part is that she was kind of a flat chest. She was like no bigger than a B cup. It was actually her twin sister who got the good genes. But we're gonna stop talking like an asshole.
He says that what he did was wrong, that it was a sin, and that he deeply regrets his actions. Then he demonstrates through consistent non sequiturs and side tangents that he actually doesn't really feel bad for what happened. It's obvious Earl doesn't wish to rectify the damage, rather he just wants people to stop calling him a predator. That likely explains why Earl went as far as to write the girl a letter of confession, which he claims could have been used in court to sue him.
I apologized to her. I approached her big brother and he even said life's too short for hate. The one person who really never forgave me though was her twin sister. She stayed quiet. But she has a right to be angry at me. I hurt her twin sister. And she has every right to hate me.
It's hard to believe that Earl actually thinks the girl had forgiven him, when in reality she clearly rejected his apology and told him to get over it as nicely as possible. Of course, it's far more beneficial for Earl to say he was forgiven, as it postures his online detractors as relentless bullies beating a dead horse. He then goes on to address the bomb threat situation, in which he once again separates himself from whatever accountability he can, blaming it all on a supposed manic episode. While there's no denying that states of mania may cause you to behave erratically or dangerously, it's hard to imagine the levels of psychosis required to believe that the comment in question was a literal bomb threat. The specific theater he works at is never mentioned, nor are there any direct threats of violence made towards the venue. The White's Bowser may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he isn't that incompetent. It's far more likely he saw this as an opportunity for redemption and forgiveness in the eyes of his former coworkers, and he took it. But if you thought he couldn't get any more delusional than he already had, you'd be dead wrong.
The supervisor did that when she lied to the police was she Now you might be wondering, why in the crap would the supervisor of Imagine Macomb, a good friend of mine, why would she lie to the police about everything that happened with...
The first lie supposedly told was that Earl had been fired, which he disputes, stating instead that he chose to quit. Overall, this point is irrelevant, as Earl was requested by the manager to stop interacting with the coworkers and was never offered his job back. But the second lie is so ridiculous you couldn't possibly make it up. The manager had apparently mentioned the confessional apology letter, labeling it as a letter of harassment. Earl claims this was done not to disparage him, but rather to protect him.
She didn't want to disclose to the sheriff what exactly that letter said, because if she did, I probably would have been taken away in handcuffs for groping an 18-year-old. I would have been taken away in handcuffs for groping an 18-year-old, even if it was unintentional, because of what that letter said. However, the supervisor of Imagine Macomb lied about what that letter said. She did. She lied to the police about what that letter said, just to save me from getting arrested.
The mental gymnastics here are truly baffling. To describe the letter Earl had written to the young girl as harassment is anything but a lie. In fact, it seems to correlate perfectly with reality. But Earl had decided that this true statement was actually an intentional lie to save him. And of course, he frames this as his former employees protecting him, showing that they still cared for him and had his back.
These past 5 months, I have tried my utmost damnedest to make people realize that I didn't mean for any of this to happen. That I truly am still disgusted with myself for what I did. That I still truly feel shame for what I did. And yet, even when I present all of you with the facts of the matter, it doesn't matter to you internet trolls.
It's hard to view this framing as anything but manipulative. Earl wants you to believe that everyone in the situation had his back and he's been forgiven. Meanwhile, the evil and disgusting trolls relentlessly prosecute him for a simple mistake. The only thing that could possibly make this video more pathetic is Earl dedicating time to talk about how this young girl's twin sister was supposedly interested in him romantically. Something that's surely a delusion of grandeur and not real whatsoever.
I don't care anymore because you have every right to hate me. You do. What I did was wrong. If forgiveness doesn't matter to you trolls, if apologies don't matter, if lying to the police doesn't matter, then I really don't know what else to say.
Earl Doobie, the man well known for gooning to underage anime girls, was quite literally put in a state of shock after touching a breast, supposedly wanting nothing to do with this girl, who in his words wanted to take his virginity. 52 minutes and 59 seconds. That is how long this apology video is, and anyone with one brain cell can see the problem here. This video doesn't even need to be a minute long. Just admit what you did, apologize, and move on. Or if you wish to correct the record, you're more than free to do so. But you don't get to label a video full of excuses and self-victimization as a humble expression of regret and forgiveness. It's really no surprise why this video was not favorably received, and it would do very little to quell any negative discourse surrounding Earl. However, it did sow the seeds for another potential reunion between Earl and Kiwi and Smokey. Something I didn't mention is that Earl's confessional video was released on his 30th birthday, and the trolls felt bad that he was likely spending it alone, with his virginity still intact. So they did something nice for him, locating a clown that lived near Earl's residence. This This clown, who was completely oblivious to the situation, live streamed himself visiting Earl's house, believing the other members of the call were Earl's friends trying to cheer him up for his birthday. When he knocked on the door, Earl's mother answered and almost immediately slammed the door in his face. While the prank was relatively harmless, it did terrify Earl, who now feared for his safety and worried about potential swattings. On the bright side, with Earl's recent apology and invasion of privacy, the boys at Too High for Stupid had the perfect opportunity to rebuild the bridge under the guise of forgiveness.
Yesterday was really stressful. Yesterday was very, very stressful for me. Very stressful. So I just wanted to chill and play chess today. But if you just want to solve this within 30 minutes so I can get back to chess, that's fine.
Well, yeah,
I think that's a good start. That's a good start.
I'm sure you can guess how this went. Just like with every other call, Bowser fails to take accountability, and ultimately nothing of note came from it, aside from a few funny clips. However, one massive revelation would be revealed in the coming days. Supposedly, someone managed to get into contact with the girl that Bowser had accidentally groped, and she told a very different story from his. While this discussion seems to have never been archived properly, Earl does not seem to deny this discussion's validity, with the girl stating at one point that she was considering getting a restraining order. Of course, Earl would never admit to lying about this himself, and he claims that he was lied to by the girl's twin sister, who had supposedly claimed to be 18. This is extremely hard to believe, as it's almost certain that this girl's age would be brought up to Earl at some point during the investigation, or his many transgressions with former co-workers.
Tell me, at no point during this whole thing they said she was 17, during any of this.
It was 2 years ago, Smokey. I don't remember that much.
It's so strange that Earl is capable of remembering arbitrary interactions where the girl is directly lying about her age, but can't for the life of him recall the revelations that these statements were complete lies. Bowser also continues to show little respect for the situation, as the day before his appearance on the podcast, he would send Smokey a message in which he once again compared the situation to anime. Smokey, I want to let you know that we are entering Season 3 of the Bowserverse, the animated series. Season 1, the movie theater incident and Discord server arc. Season 2, the Tony Black Dragon's curse, as well as the start of the 110 podcast, and the threats of legal lawsuits, as well as the police calls and everything. And now we are entering Season 3, which starts with the apology arc and the truth coming forth about everything. Now, if you have the misfortune of remembering the Discord server full of minors that Earl ran, he sheds light on how he came to power there.
What does that mean? Passion for it?
Well,
in a Discord server, what does that mean?
Well...
you're just there a lot?
No, not even that. You would post images of anime and not and when I say passion, I sort of mean dirty passion, because there was a lot of dirty passion posting of anime stuff.
Okay, so dirty passion is what they were looking for, and that's what they saw in you to kind of.
No. Let me finish.
Okay.
The way the anime Discord server worked was the more passion you showed for anime in the Discord server, the more you moved up the ranks.
You heard that right. Bowser entered the server full of degenerates sharing not safe for work content with minors, and he was such an all-star at it that the former owner crowned him the new king. However, days later, even more information would come out from the girl, and this time we have screenshots. She claimed that Earl hadn't frozen in place after touching her. He actually proceeded to fondle her and flick her nipple. She claims that he was forced to leave if he didn't want to get arrested. She also denies that her sister was romantically interested in him, saying that she just felt bad for him and wanted to be nice. On top of that, she confirmed that Earl was not only fired from the theater, but also prevented from working at or even visiting any other franchise under the same brand. It seems all of this had become too much for White Bowser, and in an attempt to hide from these revelations, he decided a rebrand was in order, changing his channel name to Knight from Afar.
I just want to be a knight from afar and not the White Bowser anymore. I don't want to even be I don't want to be associated with my past. I want to make a new future for me, that's all.
Bowser spends the majority of this video talking about how much physical and mental pain he's endured for the last 5 months, but he didn't really manage to garner any sympathy from the audience. Instead, Smokey pressed Earl on why he lied about being fired and omitted the fact that he not only groped this girl, but also proceeded to fondle her. He ultimately had no answer for this. When asked for a direct response to the text messages that were leaked, he once again used the excuse that he didn't even remember the incident. Bowser is able to remember so many details about this situation, but for some reason, he can't remember the single most important detail of the whole thing. But because Bowser didn't acknowledge the situation of being fired, he was pressed once again for an answer. From there, he claimed that since he was in debt from unemployment payments he he received, that meant he couldn't possibly have been fired. This doesn't really make sense because anyone is able to receive unemployment benefits regardless of being fired or directly quitting, but whatever. Earl had no real ground to stand on, and he eventually left the call with nothing to say. However, there was a different individual that Earl had no problem talking to. If you've seen my videos about Cyrax, you'll probably know who Music Biz Marty is. For whatever reason, Earl began speaking with Marty directly on stream, and you might be surprised to see how empathetic Marty was to Earl's situation.
I don't really have any issues with you. I think you've been getting a bum rap.
Okay.
People want to label you as this sex predator when, let's be honest here. In the state of Michigan, the girl was 17, so she was an adult. So how would that make you a pedophile? I don't understand that at all.
Of course, with how nice Marty was to Earl, he continued to appear on his streams over the coming days. Many were not pleased with this for obvious reasons, leading both Marty and Earl to comment publicly on the situation, the latter of which praised Marty and his fans for the warmth they had shown him. Marty even went as far as sharing Earl's Cash App on stream, wherein he supposedly received over $1,000 in donations. However, it seems their relationship fizzled out for some time, and White Bowser content would come to a standstill. Unfortunately, that didn't stop him from spiraling, once again changing his name on YouTube and implying that his departure from the internet was inevitable. He also grew more and more paranoid in regards to real-life harassment, which culminated in him leaving a sign up in front of his house, which says, "This house has been targeted by cyberbullies and internet criminals. Please leave me alone. I have a disabled mother to take care of. I am leaving the internet." In early August, Earl revealed he had just been released from a psychiatric hospital after a failed attempt on his own life, simultaneously posting on his community tab in an effort to own the haters. Earl was clearly becoming more and more erratic, with his long and drawn-out rants potentially being indicative of a manic episode. But as we would soon find out, Earl was only moments away from another insane chapter. In the summer of 2023, the local police were called down to the theater that Earl worked at, where 2 employees wanted to report disturbing voicemails left by Earl. In them, Earl vaguely states that he'll likely be on the news soon and wants to find a resolution before the situation escalates.
If you don't choose to call me back, you won't have to wait long. I'm going to be on television within the next 7 days. I decided to do one last action, one last resort move, because my life's been a living hell for the past 8 months.
This is obviously a horrifying implication, and with Earl's unstable behavior, it was only fair to assume the worst. Whether he would be on the news for an act of violence or for some act perpetrated against his own well-being, the 2 employees were gravely concerned. The cops decided to follow up to determine what exactly was going on with Earl. From there, Earl apparently explained to the police that he had been writing numerous letters to a plethora of government agencies in an attempt to report his cyberbullies and trolls. The cops eventually left under the belief that Earl appeared to be in a good mental health space. However, it appeared to be far from the case, as not even a week later, they got called once again in regards to Earl's harassment. This time, it was in reference to a text message Earl had sent one of the employees. Now, the guy he was texting was named Giovanni, and it's likely the same Gio Earl had mentioned earlier in his confessional video, who he called a friend. You want to know what, Giovanni? You can tell the girl that I have permanent official trauma right now. I have become almost borderline agoraphobic. The fact that she messaged those insane evil psychopaths on Facebook is putting more than just my life in danger. They are targeting everyone that allies with me, including my friends, my family, police officers, and even leaders of the Catholic Church. I really hope she's happy with herself. She is the one who owes me an apology now. It is mind-numbingly frustrating that Earl blames the girl for this situation when every bit of criticism that he's faced has been a direct result of his actions and inability to just shut up. You see, Earl believes that apologizing makes the situation go away. Once you've apologized or admitted to doing something wrong, that means it's just not bad anymore, right? Of course, that's not to say that people can't learn from their mistakes or that apologies are always invalid. Rather, the issue is that Earl has never made any attempt to honestly frame the situation or genuinely apologize, nor has he demonstrated a clear commitment to being a better person. While you might expect this to result in another public interrogation on Too High for Stupid, that was seemingly out of the cards. If these unhinged voicemails and text messages don't make it clear enough, Bowser at this point was slipping beyond the pale. And while those around him in real life were forced to deal with his insanity, the public story for the most part would die from the time being. If Earl wasn't willing to publicly humiliate himself anymore, then online detractors would do their best to extract the sweet nectar from the source. The first documented response that Earl gave was directed at a supposed woman who was attempting to court him. Earl responds angrily, informing her that he isn't interested, and hilariously claims that he is practicing sexual abstinence abstinence, as if he hadn't been doing that his entire life. But trolls were not the only ones sending out emails, as it appears Earl began harassing the girl he had groped once again with long, manic diatribes. To summarize his incoherent gibberish, it's basically what you'd expect. The trolls are lying, they're ruining his life, and of course, everyone else is to blame but him. It is worth noting that there hasn't been any direct confirmation that these emails are actually legitimate, but it doesn't require a stretch of the imagination to believe they are. But obviously, this didn't prevent a few of the more passionate trolls from continuing to send him emails. Surprisingly, in one response, Earl gives a very sober perspective on the situation, uncharacteristic of his previous statements. I'm well aware, I have no one but myself to blame. I'm also aware that I cannot win this. Even if medical, local law, and federal law all find me innocent and not a predator, it will not make a difference. The public's perception is set in stone now. What's done is done. Of course, Bowser would go right back to his old ways, claiming the people who hate him are racists and even potentially members of a very controversial political party from 1930s Germany. Keep in mind, this is just a single sentiment in the thousands of words he typed out to just one individual. After this point, he began ignoring hate messages sent to his email address, leading many to believe he wasn't responding to any at all. However, after someone sent him a sympathetic message, the White Bowser reemerged. Despite feeling comfortable enough to respond, Earl acknowledges that anyone who reaches out to him is more than likely a troll. He also claimed at the time to have moved on from the situation and not care anymore. An unlikely sentiment considering he's still engaging in this situation with this email. He goes on to say that he won't respond to any more messages moving forward, something he would eventually contradict a few days later. But before we get into that, Earl also made a very curious claim that the police had secretly been spying on him for 4 months while working at his job, and that the cops had come to the conclusion that he was innocent because he never approached anyone under the age of consent. So apparently Earl is admitting that he warranted enough of a threat for his local police department to conduct a covert operation on him for almost half a year. Obviously this story is a complete lie, but it's funny to think that Earl actually believes that this makes him sound innocent. Another email sent to him asked for details on a supposed letter Earl was attempting to deliver to his victim, likely similar in nature to previous letters. Rather than ignoring this email, Earl dedicated time out of his day to type paragraphs just to inform them that he wasn't going to reply. A few days later, another batch of screenshots were released that featured much of the same lunacy demonstrated prior. However, one statement truly shows how delusional Earl had become. I do not fear the patrols. I have an entire police department of my city on my side, protecting me and defending me. The trolls can do nothing to me with local law enforcement on my side. Even if the FBI shows up to my door tomorrow, my local police will tell them to dismiss any accusations they were told because they were not credible. The idea that the Federal Bureau of Investigation would find enough evidence to investigate Earl only for them to be turned away by local police is so detached from all reality that I doubt even Earl truly believes this. But with the White Bowser, things tend to become a bit samey. Much like his podcast appearances and community tab posts, it gets to the point where I'd just be repeating myself for hours. So for the sake of brevity, we can move on from the mountain of unhinged emails he sent. After some time without a peep from him, on the 28th of January 2024, Smokey MCC revealed on Twitter that Earl Doobie had filed a privacy complaint on his channel. This supposedly resulted in his entire channel being demonetized. However, the decision appears to have been quickly reverted. Earl would then retreat back into hiding for some time. But if one thing was for certain, it was that he couldn't control his own impulses to respond forever. In April of 2024, the White Bowser posted a handful of comments on Reddit. In it, he asserts that the girl he groped was actually 18 at the time, retracting his previous admittance that she wasn't. His reasoning being that her twin sister worked as a bartender in 2021, and at the time, only individuals above the age of 18 were permitted to work in that position. He claims that this is proof, when in reality it hardly proves anything. We can't just trust the White Bowser at his word, especially given how he himself has admitted to being a compulsive liar, and there's no verifiable evidence that her sister actually worked that position. The same day these comments were posted, Earl reached out to none other than Smokey himself via email. In it, he reveals that he apparently has a wealth of insider knowledge and admits to checking his Kiwi Farms thread constantly. He then goes on to say, "The truth has been revealed. I never groped a minor. All of you lied. To everyone. That little house of cards you built, it's all gonna come crashing down. You really underestimate your opponent. You forgot I know how to play chess." I can just imagine him pushing up his glasses like an anime villain when typing this. Bowser then released a video to his channel called Whatever Broski, in which he compiles different screenshots that attempt to paint a narrative. As to what that narrative is, it's difficult to discern, but it's worth pointing out that in this video, he goes on to dox his former coworkers, Giovanni and the twin sister, by sharing their LinkedIn profiles. By the way, way, nowhere does it state that the twin sister was ever a bartender, which means that this video achieves nothing aside from making Earl look like a jackass. He then posted a few more meme videos in which he crudely edits a picture of him, pictures of Kiwi Tape's profile picture, and Smokey's profile picture, on top of a scene from the show Supernatural. In the description of the video, he promises to make an official return in February of 2025 due to the trespassing order at the movie theater being lifted. I don't know why the trespassing order being in place or not prevents him from using the internet, but I digress. In the next video, he records a call to a different movie theater in Wisconsin. Under the false pretense of looking for a job for his younger cousin, he asks how old you need to be to work there. He did this solely to prove you need to be 16 to work there, which is completely irrelevant to any criticisms made against him because the girl that he groped was 17. He also did this 2 more times, by the way. Extremely deranged behavior. In a later video, he explains that this is important because the twin sister's LinkedIn page states she started working there in April of 2019, and the event took place in June of 2021, which would be over 2 years later, meaning that they both had to have been at least 18 by that point. To Earl's credit, this could be a decent point. However, it's entirely possible that he's incorrect about the date of the incident, or perhaps the store policies were different at that time. Even then, he still admits he groped her, and her being legal or barely legal instead of underage doesn't really vindicate him in any sense of the word. Earl also calls out a prominent Kiwi Farms user in the thread, calling him a transphobic slur, a closeted homosexual, the N-word, and says that he's bad at math. Which is, wow, brutal insults over here. Shortly after the video, it seems Earl removed all of the videos on the Whatever Broski channel, but he wasn't just trying to scrub his own videos off the internet. He was also actively engaging in attempts to censor his critics. He was frequently sending privacy complaints to Smokey's YouTube channel again. In a new Reddit post, Earl denied any involvement in reporting Smokey's videos, while also claiming that he personally had moved on from the situation. Not to beat a dead horse, but as long as Earl keeps engaging in discourse and making videos about this stuff, he has not moved on from anything. There are a few other notable tidbits here though, like the revelations of a White Bowser documentary being made by an unnamed content creator, as well as addressing his alleged firing from his new job. This comes from a supposed former coworker who anonymously posted to Reddit. He claimed that Earl had been fired for violating a workplace policy regarding purchasing items while on the clock. It also turns out he was fired 2 other times, only to be rehired thanks to his membership in a union. He also pointed out that the grocery store he worked at just so happened to be right across the street from that same movie theater he was fired from. More important, however, he claimed that Earl made multiple women at the workplace uncomfortable. In one alleged incident, after sitting at a seat reserved for someone else, a female coworker kindly asked him to move. He became enraged and began to shout at her while stomping his feet on the floor. Supposedly, some trolls had started a rumor that the reason he was fired was due to groping a second woman, but this was more than likely a tongue-in-cheek joke about his previous behavior. Regardless, Earl was having none of it, and confirmed that he was actually fired for shopping on the clock. Without Earl realizing, he had directly confirmed that the ex-employee was a reliable source, as they both gave the same reason for his firing, meaning that it was also likely that his multiple other firings and violent outbursts at women were also true. Once again, Earl went dark, and we wouldn't hear from him again, until Smokey revealed a new email he had received. Earl Doobie calls Smokey a weak-minded bully, argued that the girl he groped wasn't a minor, claiming he would be releasing the apology letter he had written to the girl publicly, and once again rejected the notion that he had tried to flag down Smokey's channel. This was followed by a second email, which is pretty much just him incoherently rambling about the same talking points. Despite his supposed indifference and total lack of care about the situation, it seems Earl still couldn't control himself, and as a result, he created a new burner account on YouTube to comment on Smokey's videos. Anime Lover 2003 was created only 1 hour prior and posted 7 different comments, all in defense of Earl. The comments also suspiciously used the same framing Earl had, chalking up the whole situation as someone with autism being bullied for liking anime. But the emails didn't stop there, because Smokey announced that Earl Doobie had apparently secured his own personal information and was now threatening him with it. Smokey clearly didn't take it all that seriously, repeating similar sentiments Bowser had made in the past, and judging by the email, it seems the only real information that Earl had on Smokey was the city he was living in. Realizing that Smokey was undisturbed by his threats, Earl continued to prod at him through email, sending him a message that is simply too hilarious to not read out loud. Hey baby boy, you keep on saying I groped someone when I've already proven I did not. Does baby boy need another sip from the bourbon Is baby boy scared he will never know what his grandchildren will look like because he will be dead by then from liver cancer and lung cancer? Such a shame. You are so insecure about your life, baby boy. Honestly, I think that's it. Earl won, guys. He has triumphed over the degenerate drug addict Smokey McCrack and owned him in the marketplace of ideas. Truly an epic Reddit win. Even more epic is yet another allegation directed at Earl. A new user claiming to be a former classmate alleged that he habitually harassed her and a handful of other girls. They also provided proof that they went to school with him, showing a yearbook with Earl Doobie inside. After this, there was once again a period of relative silence from Earl. On the 25th of May 2024, Smokey released part 1 of the Predatory History of White Bowser, which covered the timeline of Earl from his origins to the second episode of 110 Autism. Some speculated that Earl had used a sock puppet account to defend himself in the comments, which is hard to verify but not difficult to believe given the prior one. However, 1 month later, for the first time in a long while, Earl uploaded a new video of himself to YouTube in front of the camera once again. With his waifu body pillow in hand, Earl clearly had gained a decent amount of weight, something that he addresses right from the jump.
I'm actually 245, used to be 225. Yeah, it sucks. It's called depression. It's also called pharmacy bloat from being on too many medications.
He then goes on to drop a bombshell allegation, claiming that Smokey and Kiwi Tapes are personally fostering a community of PDF files and sex pests. Bowser also reveals he sent Smokey an email, which he uncharacteristically didn't share this time like he normally does. But what exactly is he talking about here? Well, you might remember Cow Wrangler, who was referenced previously as Earl's arch nemesis, and also farmed multiple clips of Earl completely melting down on both episodes of the 110 Autism podcast. Well, Earl also had some damning allegations directed at them.
Meanwhile, we got Cow Wrangler here who will flash his hairy thighs at a bunch of kids inside a Discord server just for attention and will apparently jack off in VC. Yeah, there is proof and evidence of that on Strasse's Kick channel, The Harvest Report, and on Strasse's YouTube channel, in his community posts.
The person he references, named Strass, now Londo, is a former Kiwi Tapes Discord moderator who had become disgruntled over the handling of the White Bowser situation, as well as supposedly paying for a call with another lolcow named Jupiter. He began uploading videos exposing Cow Wrangler, as well as another character from 110 Autism, Zippity, of being sex pests. The latter was alleged to have sent images of himself from middle school wearing a skirt, as well as unsolicited nudes to strangers. What's more is they were also accused of cozying up to none other than fellow lolcow Cyrax. It's actually quite ironic that one of the major events in the White Bowser lore were the allegations of Smokey working with Cyrax to create a drama farm, only for a prominent member of Smokey's community to be alleged to be friendly with him behind the scenes. There were also a handful of other orbiters who had supposedly purchased diaper fur art, which is just great. These revelations resulted in both Cow Wrangler and Zippity deleting their social media profiles, which only made Bowser feel like he had finally earned himself a win. He also revealed that Zippity had been feeding him information to stay a step ahead of his detractors, although it appears this image was photoshopped and the true leaker has yet to be revealed. However, Strass believes that Earl had not properly framed all of the details. He claimed that Wrangler and another orbiter weren't PDF files, but rather swept for them and covered up their behavior. He also disputes a claim made about Kiwi Tapes lying about having a child and using it as a grift, saying that he can confirm he does have a kid. Tons of other details are also clarified or recontextualized, details that are ultimately pretty relevant. This thread was full of a few individuals who were rather deranged and couldn't help argue with each other, and honestly it's too boring to fully go into, but it is clear that a handful of orbiters within Smokey and Kiwi Tapes' communities were not the best people, although it is questionable to think about how much this reflects on them, as ultimately they had nothing to do with it. Smokey even publicly acknowledged this new video, and promised to talk about it on the next Too High for Stupid episode. Despite allegations of covering up the situation, Smokey and Kiwi Tapes had no issue conceding that certain individuals were engaging in unsavory actions and that they wouldn't be returning to the show. Earl claimed that this revelation would destroy their careers, but that was far from the case, as the two continue to upload to YouTube today with no issue. The day after their response, Earl seemingly had a mental breakdown, spending 13 minutes shaving his head on video. He barely made any progress, considering he was using a beard trimmer not designed for a full head of hair, but after he managed to somehow successfully shave his head, he decided to change his YouTube channel's name to Based Bald Bowser. Then, a few days days later, Earl once again appeared on Music Biz Marty's livestream, where Marty seems to indulge in his delusions. Some have speculated as to whether or not Marty does this to lure Earl into a false sense of security, or if he's really trying to be friends with him. But it doesn't really matter, because as mentioned earlier, Earl had netted at least a few $1,000s with the help of Music Biz Marty. Regardless of his intentions, that's not a very effective troll. However, it seems that at some point, Marty and Earl ended up having a bit of a fallout. Apparently, admins within Music Biz Marty's Discord server stated they wanted to kick him from the server, although it seems Marty wanted him to stay. But Earl felt as though his relationship with Marty was a transactional one and decided to cut ties anyway.
It tells me that Marty doesn't really seem to see me as a genuine like if Marty's admins in his Discord are saying they want to kick me from the Discord, and if Marty himself is not exploiting me on his live streams, then that tells me that there's a level of being facetious.
But in a twist, it seems Earl wasn't entirely finished with Marty, as he quickly tried to reconnect with him, this time offering a match of true intellects, a chess match wager. If Bowser won, he would gain control of Marty's Discord server, and if Marty won, he would leak who the mole was, feeding him information from trolls. Unfortunately for Earl, it seems Marty never afforded him this opportunity, and he has since then faded away from the internet under the moniker of the White Bowser. The most recent activity documented from Earl is a YouTube account called Gregory House Gaming. There's really nothing interesting on this channel, aside from the occasional video and community post rant, typical of any other account he's owned in the past. Although one notable thing is Bowser's taken up a new art form, poetry. You have to wake up early. Your tax dollars support me. Life's good when you're a need. Dumb wages can't compete. I'm never getting a job. You're a slave and I'm not. Stay mad and keep working. I'm at home doing nothing. Throw my piss jugs out the window. Freaks given, 0. Cuddling my Genshin Impact pillow. Keep on waging while I stay home. He's also recently traveled to the White Bowser subreddit to request that everyone there leave him alone. While most of it was him having a mental breakdown again, one section in particular was pretty interesting. He said, "I'm doing good in life. I'm seeing a cute girl I met at church. I will soon be receiving $20,000 from my UIA lawsuit over the theater lying about whether I was quit or was fired. I've started to lose weight, and I'm getting better at chess every day. I also haven't left the internet. My new YouTube channel has over 250 subs, and it keeps growing by the day. So I'm doing much better than 99.99% of you." Unfortunately, whether these life developments were true or not, they didn't really seem to prevent Earl from having another episode after Smokey released the second part of his Earl documentary on YouTube. This was then followed by a Reddit post coming from a supposed coworker claiming Earl was not a predator and that he is normal. Shortly after, a second post came from Earl stating his intentions to sue Smokey and Kiwi Tapes. However, he later claimed that this actually wasn't him and that he was banned from creating accounts on Reddit, therefore the post about lawsuits was apparently fake, at least in Earl's compulsive liar words. But one user did suspect Earl may be telling the truth here, and instead, one of Earl's trolls was behind this. Regardless, this last little detail doesn't matter, as Earl had already publicly humiliated himself enough that proving or disproving whether this Reddit post was from him doesn't really repair his already soiled public image. To this day, Earl continues to post on YouTube with little end in sight for his saga. The story of White Bowser is truly a unique one, and it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. Earl had so many chances for self-preservation, and he blew all of them, admitting to being a terrible person, while at the same time refusing to stop feeding into the people who hate him. It's a wonder how far he needs things to sink before he realizes that it just isn't worth it and he should probably just leave the internet and throw his jugs out the window or whatever makes him happy. With that being said, I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks so much for watching this video about White Bowser. Hope you found it interesting, informative, maybe even cringed a little bit. Nothing wrong with a little cringe. And until next time, leave me alone.